water, earth, fire, air. Not this one.
That's impossible. I'm Toth Bayfa, and I invented metal bending.
Nah, that ain't it, y'all.
Listen, man.
Alright, let's get into it. Before I get into the live action, I just want to say how much I appreciate the original Avatar. It's one of those great shows that does everything well. The storyline is efficient, the pacing is good, the animation is beautiful, and every episode feels meaningful. It's funny, emotional, action packed, and all without wasting a single moment. What makes Avatar so special is that every line, every scene, and every character moment matters. The world building is incredible, the cast is unforgettable, and the fight choreography is still some of the best I've ever seen in a show. It's not just a great kids series, it's one of the best shows of my generation, and that's why so many fans love it, including me. Netflix's live action Avatar is a huge disappointment, and season 2 makes the problems even harder to ignore. It keeps the story on the surface, but it strips away the heart, character depth, and emotional impact that made the original series so good. The biggest issue isn't just that it changes the story, it's that it keeps missing the heart of what made Avatar special in the first place. The original Avatar worked because every character had a clear role, and every arc was built on emotional payoff. The live action version keeps trying to recreate the same events, but it often forgets that the structure of the live action is fundamentally different. The adaptation needs to complement the story without weakening or degrading the original plot. Adaptations should respect the original characters and story that made the source material popular with good writing, production, and performance that matched the original story. That's why so many scenes end up feeling less impactful, even when the plot points are technically still there. The first big problem is that a lot of the characters are being misrepresented. Aang is supposed to be a playful kid with an upbeat and happy personality. Instead of showing a kid who avoids responsibility while slowly growing into it, the show often makes him seem like he's always carrying the weight of the world every second. That removes a lot of the contrast that made his original character arc work. You can see this in the way his avatar state struggle is handled. In the original show, it was tied to his fears, his grief, and his need to learn control. In the live action, the whole process of the avatar state was reduced to a brief conversation, which makes it feel shallow instead of meaningful. The show talks about how terrible it feels for him, but it never really earns that feeling or explains the deeper pain that should come with entering the avatar state. And then the fight with Azula makes the problem more obvious. Aang gets shot in the chest, but the wound appears on his back, which is a small detail, but it shows how careless the scene feels. And instead of his death in the avatar state feeling tragic and impactful, it comes across like he gives up mid-fight. Aang's avatar state entry is less impactful and quickly resolved without Katara's intervention and the sacrifice of his love for Katara, making his near death less touching. That's why people see it as so irresponsible, because it takes one of Aang's most crucial parts in the story and makes those moments feel rushed and confusing. And the payoff is weaker because the show doesn't have the same emotional build-up. Appa's disappearance is another reason Aang's story feels weaker in the live action. In the animated show, Appa was just stolen by the Sandbenders, which had an effect on Team Avatar, especially Aang, because Appa is the closest thing that Aang has to the air nomads. So when he's taken away, it feels devastating. Without Appa, their mode of transportation is gone, making their journey very difficult. That loss doesn't just hurt Aang, it sends the whole group into a spiral and gives the story a real sense of urgency. But in the live action, Appa is seen in Serpent's Pass with Team Avatar when he's supposed to be captured by the Sandbenders. Appa being there defeats the purpose of traveling through the Serpent's Pass to get to Ba Sing Se, inform the king about the eclipse. At this point, they could have just flown over. Appa is captured in Ba Sing Se in the adaptation, which makes no sense, and because Appa appears less often due to CGI costs, the bond between him and Team Avatar doesn't feel as strong. That removes one of the most important pieces of Aang's character arc. The grief and desperation that come from losing the one friend he feels safest with is his best buddy. Katara gets hit hard in the live action because she loses her role as the leader who regulates the group's emotions. In Avatar The Last Airbender, she's not just the waterbender. She's the one who keeps the group grounded, the one who pushes others forward, and the one who brings warmth and emotional stability to the team. The live action diminishes Aang and Katara's relationship by not sharing vulnerable and intimate details and how the team always does things together. For example, Katara and Aang not learning waterbending together is seen as a missed opportunity for character development and their dynamic. They also remove or weaken some of her key moments. The Serpent's Pass should have been a chance for her to step up and care for refugees, which would have reinforced her compassion and leadership. Instead, it feels like a missed opportunity. That is one of her most important emotional moments in the original, and the live action version loses the weight of that entirely. It just feels like the writers don't understand Katara's compelling character. Sokka is another character who loses a lot in the adaptation. In the original show, he's not just a comic relief or the warrior guy. He's a leader, a strategist, and one of the smartest members of the group when it comes to quick decisions and tactical planning. The live action keeps pushing him toward grief and trauma, but doesn't really give that trauma a strong payoff. He ends up feeling less like a capable, growing character and more like someone the script keeps telling us is struggling and finally showing us. What's annoying is that his intelligence keeps getting overlooked. Moments like planning against the drill, the plan to defeat the Fire Nation during the eclipse, or showing leadership are either minimized or handed to other characters. This is going to make his future arcs feel less believable, because the show hasn't built up the qualities that make him important in the first place. One of the biggest losses is the removal of his assumptions of women not being able to be good fighters. That may sound like a negative trait, but in the original, it serves as an important purpose. It gives Sokka a clear flaw that needed to be addressed to confront his own assumptions of how wrong he was. That arc matters because it shows him learning humility, respect, and tactical wisdom at the same time. Without that, the adaptation loses one of the clearest moments where Sokka actually changes. Instead, the live action tends to reduce his story to a much simpler romance, which is a huge downgrade. His relationship with Suki should be about him overcoming overprotectiveness and learning to respect her strength and skill. That's what makes their dynamic meaningful in the original. But when the adaptation trims down that growth, it turns the relationship into something far less satisfying. Sokka is no longer learning how to trust Suki as an equal. He's mostly just orbiting a romance without the same emotional payoff. Zuko's arc is still there on paper, but the emotional logic behind it is weaker. His moments with Iroh don't hit the same way because the show keeps changing how he processes shame, approval, and identity. Instead of feeling like a young man slowly learning who he is, he often feels like he's being moved through plot points. The biggest issue is that the show keeps making choices that feel out of character. Zuko stealing from a pregnant woman and her husband of water, which makes him feel cruel in a way that doesn't fit his original conflict, which is about honor, shame, and proving himself. The same problem shows up for Iroh. In the original series, Iroh is a wise, subtle mentor who guides Zuko without spelling everything out for him. But in the live action, it makes him too direct. even putting Zuko in a farm setting that weakens his journey among common people. They also have Zuko blame Iroh for Ozai becoming Fire Lord, which undercuts the original shift away from blaming himself and toward recognizing Ozai as the source of his pain. The show also weakens key turning points, such as Zuko alone loses some of its moral nuance when the live action makes him feel more like a hypocrite than a conflicted character trying to do the right thing. Lightning redirection is reduced, so his bonding moment with Iroh and his darkest self-discovery loses power. In the adaptation, Zuko barely listens. The library sequence also changes too much, especially when it replaces Zuko finding Appa and misses Iroh's crucial advice to him. Zuko passes up a defenseless Aang, which feels inconsistent with his goal at this point. This reduces the emotional strength of their relationship. Iroh also lacks his calm demeanor without the emotional buildup that made his original moments impactful, which weakens Iroh's presence overall. Season 2 keeps the same pattern. Ozai wanting Zuko home for no real reason softens the lie at the center of Zuko's motivation, which makes his obsession with capturing Aang less credible. And the finale relapse is weaker too. In the original, he falls back because he wants Ozai's approval, but here he relapses to honor his mother, which drains the decision of a lot of its emotional impact. The performance is there, but the character logic isn't. On to Azula. Azula is frustrating because her performance is strong, but the writing keeps undercutting her. She should feel terrifying because of her intelligence, patience, and control. Instead, her motivations keep shifting around too much. She goes from Ozai's commands to trying to prove herself to later emotional motivations that feel inconsistent. That makes her feel less like the precise threat she should be and more like the script is still figuring out what to do with her. A good example of the writers ruining Azula's image was when she told Ty Lee and May to kill each other. That moment feels like a disrespect to the source material because Azula generally cares about their friendship. It replaces her original, more controlled style of manipulation with a blunt, cliched villain behavior. In the original series, Azula's power came from the fact that she understood people. She didn't just threaten them, she used their fears, insecurities, and loyalties against them. That's what made her so dangerous. By turning her into someone who just forces a dramatic loyalty test, the live action loses the psychological edge that made her such an effective antagonist. Her larger plan suffers as well. The extended conversation with the general about tunneling under Ba Sing Se feels unnecessary and illogical. Like, the story is reaching to make her seem strategic without actually showing it. They're not giving the audience room for interpretation and spilling out all of her plans to the audience. She loses agency because they make Ozai give the commands, instead of her keeping her sharp, active, and in control personality. In the original, Azula works so well because she feels like a primary antagonist in her own right, someone with her own goals, her own intelligence, and her own terrifying independence. The live action makes her feel more like a tool of Ozai's will, which weakens her presence a lot. Boomy is another example of the show misunderstanding the original character. In the animated series, he isn't just a weird old king. He's wise, strategic, and intentionally hard to read. His neutral Jing philosophy works because it's tied to his experience and his way of teaching Aang something important about patience and perception. In the live action, that wisdom gets diminished. He ends up feeling more like a lazy, sad guy than a king with a real philosophical point. That's why the Amashu arc feels weaker. It loses its charm and the deeper lesson underneath it. The scene's setting with the generic cell and context lack the weight and significance of the original anime. The explanation of Jing feels too blunt, losing the original nuance about mastery. So instead of feeling like a meaningful challenge, Boomy just feels reduced, and that weakens one of the story's most memorable lessons. Toph is one of the better characters in the live action. The adaptation captures her confidence and energy well, but the writing hurts her because the show gives her a completely different struggle for no real reason. In the original series, Toph's arc is built around her blindness, her overprotective family, and her need to prove she can be independent through earthbending. That makes her growth feel personal and meaningful. The live action replaces that with Toph being blind later in life, a noble family conflict, rejecting expectation, and hiding her dealings with the Fire Nation, which feels random and less connected to who Toph actually is. Also, the metal bending scene feels rushed and unearned. It should be a huge breakthrough, but instead it comes off awkward and forced, especially with the line delivery. So even though the performance works, the character arc is weaker, and that wastes a lot of potential. The pacing is another huge problem. The live action often stretches scenes that should be quick and rushes scenes that should breathe. That makes the whole season feel clunky. It either explains things too much, repeats itself too often, and doesn't trust the audience to understand what's happening, like explaining Jing twice in a row, while also dragging out scenes that should be quick. And when it comes to action, the difference is even clearer. In The Blind Bandit, Toph's introduction in Earth Rumble 6 is fast, tense, and over in about a minute and 20 seconds in the original, with the actual fight taking only seconds. The live action stretches it out over 3 minutes, with long pauses, slow bending, and almost no suspense. Instead of feeling punchy and exciting, it just feels slow. The same problem shows up in scenes like Azula's extended talk with the general about tunneling under Ba Sing Se. The live action keeps adding extra time, but not extra impact. What makes this underwhelming is that the show had a chance to do something different. It didn't need to copy the original scene for scene, but it did need to understand why the original scenes worked. Instead, it keeps making changes that leave the characters less layered, the story less interesting, and the world less alive. That's why it feels like a weaker version of something fans already loved. So, Netflix's Avatar live action is a massive disappointment because it misunderstands the characters, weakens the story, and drains the emotion out of moments that were powerful in the original. It keeps stretching out unnecessary scenes, skipping or rushing crucial plot points, over explaining everything, choppy pacing, and far less alive than it should be. And while the casting is strong, the writing and characterization keeps misreading the core of these characters and butchering iconic storylines that mattered for a reason. That's what makes it so irritating. It doesn't just fail to live up to the original, it keeps missing what made the original Avatar special in the first place. At this point, you're better off watching the original Avatar. If you want more anime commentary, fandom discussion, and honest takes like this, share, like, and subscribe for more videos. And in the comments, share your thoughts of the Netflix adaptation and tell me your thoughts.